From the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
From the VON Newsline, this is the VON Major Newscast.
Good evening, I am Marvin Ross. Alongside me, Mr. Jarvis Brown, Ms. Daniel Moore, and Ms. Tashron Tyson, who will present the VON Newsline Year in Review for 2019. We will present the highlights of the year in national, regional, international, and sporting news. We'll have the details to these and to these various segments after this message.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, VON.
Welcome back, and now we take a look at the major developments in economy and education for 2019. As the 2019 calendar year got underway, Nevis's financial sector was facing significant challenges with U.S. and European banks cutting ties with the Caribbean banks. This threatened to impact remittance transfers, international trade, and the facilitation of credit card settlements for local clients. Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, speaking in the Nevis Island Assembly on Friday 28th December, explained that this meant the country's financial system could be cut off from the international financial system.
All of a sudden, what you took for granted and what I took for granted, that we can go into any bank and send money to our son or daughter studying abroad, send money to buy our goods. All these young people like to shop online and all of that. Easy. Put your credit card in, tell them ship it to some mailbox. Mr. President, all of that can come to a screeching halt. And all of a sudden, the tourists that we depend on to come here and stay at the hotels, they can't use a credit card here because the credit card is issued by a bank in New York.
And Governor General of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, Mr. Timothy Antoine, also in February, chimed in on this development in the Caribbean, noting that work was ongoing to prevent further loss.
We have been able to work with the corresponding banks. The banks themselves have reached out. The ECCB has reached out. Our government's heads have been engaging through advocacy at various levels with the IMF and others, and we have seen some stabilization in that system. We do continue to make the point, however, that as part of a defense mechanism to secure and protect our corresponding banks, it is absolutely important that our banks look for further collaboration and consolidation.
Mr. Timothy Antoine, aside from this downside, positive developments were occurring for Nevis with another international bank set to begin operations on the island. Premier of Nevis and Finance Minister, the Honorable Mark Brantley, made the announcement at his monthly press conference on March 1st, 2019.
The technocrats of the Ministry of Finance have recommended, and I have agreed with their recommendation, to approve first international bank for Nevis, since the Bank of Nevis International was formed way back in 1996. And I'm told that they are already advertising for workers. I'm told they're seeking people, compliance officers, and people with banking expertise. That's way above my pay grade, but I am happy that as part of that jobs generation that we are attracting and have been able to attract so far, a new international bank for Nevis that will open its doors shortly, I'm advised.
That is the Honorable Mark Brantley. Also in March of this year, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, and the Barbados-based fintech company Bit Inc. signed a contract to conduct a first-of-its-kind blockchain issues central bank digital currency CBDC pilot within the Eastern Caribbean. The bank noted that the CBDC pilot would involve a securely minted issued digital version of the EC dollar and will be used for financial transactions between consumers and merchants, including peer-to-peer transactions, all using smart devices. At the time, they explained that as part of the pilot implementation, it would ramp up sensitization and education initiatives to facilitate active public engagement throughout all member countries. And the ECCB polymer notes were launched here in St. Kitts and Nevis and the other Eastern Caribbean territories in June of this year, with the face of the former governor of the bank on the $50 EC note. Following this development in October 2019, the ECCB launched the DXCD Carib app, with the app expected to offer maximum security to users. On Wednesday, 10th July, the St. Kitts Nevis and Guyana National Bank, SKNAB, that is SKNA&B, launched 2 mortgage programs in the Federation. Acting CEO of the National Bank, Mr. Donald Thompson, explained the programs at the launch seminar.
The first one we have dubbed the National Pride Program, and that stands for the Program for the Realization of Individual Dreams and Empowerment. We are helping you to realize your dreams, we are helping to empower you. So that's the National Pride. Our second program that we will launch today is called the National Grad Mortgage Program, and that means graduates realizing and achieving their dreams. And this is specifically designed for persons who have graduated university.
The maximum users could borrow under the program. The maximum users, that is the maximum persons could borrow under the program, is EC $650,000. Meanwhile, Nevis's economy and financial sector suffered a massive blow, with 2 of the major organizations closing, 1 permanently. The first impact was the closure of the Four Seasons Resort, the main economic driver for the island, on June 1st, 2019. The closure was part of the hotel's mandate to work on the second part of a redesign project, which included the signature pool, outdoor beach and pool restaurant. Based on previous announcements of the closure, it would last for some 4 months, with reopening scheduled for October 1st, 2019. During that period, some 361 workers from the establishment were affected and received relief from a number of measures that were put in place, such as workers receiving 25% of their salaries, the Homeowners Association at the resort donating $150,000, and also aid from the Nevis Island Administration, NIA, for the 2019-2020 academic school year on August 21st, 2019.
On June 26, 2019, the Cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration convened to consider whether the government could offer any additional relief to affected Four Seasons workers to assist them with the expected back-to-school expenses. I am pleased to report that after some deliberations and under the guidance of the Ministry of Finance, the Cabinet took the decision to offer each of the affected Four Seasons workers a cash payment of $1,000 to assist in defraying back-to-school expenses for their children.
The hotel employees returned to work on September 16, 2019, according to Premier Brantley.
The general manager confirmed that workers will be back to work on September 16 as scheduled. The long, hard summer will be over, and that workers will be going back to work at the Four Seasons Resort as scheduled. He indicates that the resort reopens on October 1st, and that while they will still have some other work to do, because naturally with construction you have delays, they will have some additional work to do, but he said they will be receiving their first guests by October 4th. And I believe that is good news for Nevis.
Following this announcement by the Premier, Minister of Community Development, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, led the retraining of the Four Seasons workers for the reopening of the hotel on October 1st. All the workers returned to their various jobs at the hotels. Work was still being done on the hotel to finish by Thanksgiving. Here is Mr. Brantley speaking at a sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly on Tuesday, 8th October.
The workers, we are advised, most have been back out to work since on or about the middle of September for retraining. Now I want to be clear, Mr. President, there is still ongoing work at the Four Seasons. They have indicated that most of that will be done for Thanksgiving, which I believe is in November. But what is important for me and what is important for the division people to understand is that the hotel has reopened. They have kept their commitment, they have stuck to the dates that have been given, and that our people who are affected are now back at work.
The other closure was that of the Brown Hill Communications BHC, which closed permanently on September 3, 2019, and affected some 138 workers. Speaking to the VON Newsline on Monday, 12th August, Premier Brantley provided this explanation for the closure.
I had a meeting, very briefly, at Brownhill Communications, which, as we know, has employed significant numbers of people here in Nevis over the past more than a decade. On the 2nd of August, they advised us that due to the change in climate business, that they were closing their doors effective September 3rd. We were, however, asked not to speak publicly on the matter because they wanted to have the opportunity to speak first to their employees. They did that, and as a consequence, I was afforded the opportunity to meet with all employees for a few minutes with a more substantive meeting to take place.
He also at that time had this to say.
It is clearly a very unfortunate development for the island and for these employees and their families. And my role as Premier and that of my cabinet at this point is to absolutely ensure that those employees are taken care of, that their immediate needs are met, and that for the medium to long term, that alternative employment is made available.
Following the closure, workers were promised their severance payments in early October 2019. 8 weeks after the closure, workers still did not receive their severance payments, and Premier Brantley sought to address the matter on October 31st, 2019.
That was delayed because there was some payment that came in, and they had to look at the final tally from Social Security to determine what the severance payment was going to be. And some payments, I'm told, came in early October for workers to Social Security. That is the record and reports on those payments, which had to be tabulated. So as a result, there was a bit of a setback. I just want to assure the workers that we in Nevis have done all that we can. I have been in active conversation with the Minister of Labour, Mr. Brand, Mr. Gary Liebert at the Department of Labour here has been very, very involved in this process. We have had an active exchange and communication and dialogue with the Ministry of Labour in St. Kitts. Some 47 persons have already been approved for severance, and that is the first batch.
And in more financial developments, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, on September 7th approved Republic Financial Holding Limited, RFHL, acquiring assets of the Bank of Nova Scotia following consultations with the Monetary Council and the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. A proposal of $13 million was made to buy out all Scotiabank branches in the 9 territories, including the Eastern Caribbean. The other islands approved were Anguilla, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Also, St. Kitts and Nevis ranked second in the 2019 Global Citizenship by Investment (CBI) Index in the OECS for 2019 and moved 1 spot up from its 2018 ranking. The country also ranked 26th globally with visa-free access to nearly 160 countries worldwide, a significant increase from 139 in 2018. A national consultation on the economy was held on Tuesday, 8th October at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort under the theme, The Digital Economy. Here is Financial Secretary Hilary Hazel speaking at the forum.
During the course of this year, the government has been occupied with the implementation of a wide variety of programs and projects, some of which were conceived and designed with prior input from you, our social and economic partners. Some of it were actually conceived in this very same room. We take time out every year to host these consultations because they have become an important part of the official budget calendar of the Ministry of Finance.
And International Credit Union Day was celebrated across St. Kitts and Nevis and the world on Thursday, 17 October 2019 under the theme, Local Service, Global Reach. In a message to the Federation, the Minister of Cooperatives, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, provided figures as it relates to credit unions in the Federation.
Together, they comprise a membership of more than 27,500, with assets amounting to EC 378.8 million, savings reflected by shares and deposits amounting to 313.3 million, and loans amounting to EC 258.3 million as at December 31st, 2018. This represents a growth in assets, a growth in savings and loans by more than 11%, more than 12%, and more than 9% respectively over the previous year.
Here at Nevis, the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union paid homage to its founders.
Mr. Inge Blackett, founder, Miss Cicely Grell-Hull and Mr. Crispin Foy, Mr. Anthony Horner, Mr. Spencer Byron, Miss Anne-Marie Keynes, Miss Eileen Blackett, now deceased, Mr. Spencer Howell, Miss Eugenie Hector, Miss Janet Grell-Hull, Mr. Arthur Evelyn, Mr. Warner Revere, Miss Janet Claxton, Miss Alvis Dyer, Honorable Joseph Parry, Pastor Eversley Pemberton, Miss Carmela Hanley, Mr. Edred Ward, and many others too numerous to mention. Their vision, dedication, and loyalty to the movement laid the foundation for the successes that we celebrate today.
President of the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union, Mrs. Vernicia Walters. As the year entered its final quarter, some satisfying economic news was released to the general public by Deputy Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, and that is the Honorable Sean Richards, on Saturday, 19th October. Minister Richards, who was at the time acting in the capacity of Prime Minister, explained that there has been an improvement in St. Kitts and Nevis's debt to GDP ratio.
I am pleased to inform you that as of June 2019, St. Kitts and Nevis's debt to GDP ratio stood at 55.5%. This is according to data from the Ministry of Finance. Remarkably, this is a 35% improvement over June 2014, when our debt to GDP ratio was 85% according to the Ministry of Finance.
That is the Honorable Sean Richards. And finally, the Appropriation 2020 Bill 2019-2020 Federal Budget was passed in the National Assembly in St. Kitts on Thursday evening, December 19th. The bill is also to the tune of EC $848,913,625. And also, the Nevis Appropriation 2020 Bill 2019 was passed in the Nevis Island Assembly on Thursday, 5th December. The bill is to the tune of $239,713,000 EC dollars. That concludes our economic news segment. On to news in education. As we entered into the second half of 2019, into the second month of 2019, which is February, students of the Tucker Clark Primary School in St. Kitts were the first beneficiaries of the government's efforts at developing improved ITC skills among the youths. The insurance company of the West Indies led a 3-day session at the school, training students how to write the source code for computer programs and applications. Also in February, the Joyce Lambert Primary School were the winners of the Nisbet Plantation Beach Club Primary School Tourism Quiz, hosted by the Ministry of Tourism at NEPAC on Friday, 13th February, with a total of 40 points. The school was represented by Rajan Fifield and Kenio Challenger. Second place went to the Mount Cross Preparatory School, and third went to the Violet Old Jeffers Nichols Primary School. In July of 2019, the University of the West Indies approved the establishment of a new campus in Antigua and Barbuda. Here is the Honorable Sean Richards speaking on the development at the time.
We have recognized UWI degrees here in St. Kitts and Nevis for many years, and so I suppose it would be the same standards, and so we would encourage our students to go there. As a matter of fact, as I said, depending on the particular program, it actually might be cheaper to go to Antigua. It's closer to St. Kitts and Nevis, so certainly in terms of the cost of traveling there, it's an option that persons may look at.
That is the Honorable Sean Richards. Meanwhile, Ms. Daricia Bryant and Mr. Ryan Ferguson were on July 7th named the two recipients of the MUA-NIA 2019 scholarships to pursue studies in priority areas. Bryant is currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies in the field of special education at Midwestern State University in Texas, and Mr. Ferguson is pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics with a minor in Mechanical Engineering. A number of other scholarships were also awarded throughout the year. 8 students from 8 secondary schools from across the Federation were on Friday, 30th August, presented with the St. Kitts Nevis and Gwilla Trading and Development Company, TDC, Warren C. Tyson Memorial Scholarship. 11 students were on Tuesday, 8th October, presented with the Susanna Lee High School Scholarship from the St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board, while for nationals of the Federation in the persons of Washumba Gilbert, Yaruska Irish, Dr. Glenesia O'Flaherty Kelly, and Travis Warner were on Friday, 31st August, proud recipients of scholarships from the government of the Republic of Cuba. And in August, St. Kitts and Nevis returned a national pass rate of 80.37% in the 2019 Caribbean Examination Council CXC Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC examinations. This was revealed by Minister of Education in the Federation, the Honorable Sean Richards, at a press conference at the Ocean Terrace Inn on Thursday, 15th August. He also noted that there was a 84.98% pass rate for the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE. As the 2019-2020 academic school year began on Monday, 2nd September, there were concerns among the general public on Nevis that school will not reopen due to the ongoing construction work at schools. Principal Education Officer on Nevis, Ms. Danella Claxton, on Saturday, 31st August 2019, put these concerns to rest.
We wish all of the students a very productive school year, and please note that all students are expected to go to school on Monday with the exception of Montessori Academy. Montessori students go to school on Tuesday. Outside of that, all students are expected to be at school on Monday.
And a Model Safe School Toolkit workshop was held from September 30th to October 3rd at the Ocean Terrace in OTI St. Kitts and sought to develop a national school safety policy expected to be completed by November. The workshop was the 5th mission in the project and started in 2017. And young teachers, the future of the profession, was a theme under which World Teachers Day was observed on Saturday, 5th October 2019. Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Grantley, spoke to the VON Newsline on Monday, 30th September, about the importance of teachers.
I confirm that I did have a meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Roosevelt Skerrit, in the presence
I wanted to indicate that Mrs. Pamela Pemberton, the director of the Nevis Sixth Form, has retired. She retired on the 31st of August 2019.
And current Superstar Brown College CFBC student Zidane Knight was the recipient of a Certificate of Excellence and Monetary Contribution on October 25th from the Department of Statistics on St. Kitts for receiving the best results in Applied Mathematics Unit 1 Statistical Analysis for the CAPE 2019 examinations. Also, authorities here in the Federation continue to find ways to nurture the minds of youths and prevent youth violence. One such way was through the use of baseball. The Major League Baseball Alumni Players Association held training clinics in the Federation on Sunday, 27th October. Senior Sports Officer in the Department of Youth and Sports at Nevis spoke at the time on how the activity will be beneficial to youths.
How we really try to push baseball is basically to create more opportunities for the kids in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of creating opportunities educational-wise. Baseball is a growing sport around the world, and of course it's not one of the stronger sports in Nevis like cricket. We really believe that if we are able to utilize baseball to help reduce violence and crimes and to help a lot of the young kids to be able to go to college, be able to get a scholarship through baseball, then it will be a plus for us.
This is Mr. Kelvin Bramble. That concludes a look at the biggest stories in economy and education for 2019. Daniel Moore will present the major developments in agriculture and cultural activities and festivities for 2019 after this break.
Welcome back. We will now take a look at the major developments in agriculture and cultural activities and festivities for 2019. In agriculture, the Department of Agriculture here on Nevis held its Agriculture Open Day from March 28th to the 29th, 2019 at the El Camino T. Willett Park in Charlestown. The two-day event saw dignitaries, ministers of government, and members of the general public in attendance. The patron for the event was Mr. Elmo Liburd. Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, lauded the 25th edition of the activity.
The minister and ministry want to go on record to thank all of the participating persons and organizations for their efforts in making that event so successful. That event represented 25 years of experience that went into that massive event there. We certainly look forward to producing an equal or better exhibition in 2020. And they're telling me here to say to you to be at the ETW Park.
Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture here on St. Kitts held its 2019 Open Day from Thursday 25th April to Friday 26th April under the theme Food Security for Our Country. The event was held to showcase local produce and products, as well as give local vendors an opportunity to generate income. Think Climate Smart for Food and Nutrition Security and Sustainability was the theme under which the activities were held in observance of Agriculture Awareness Month on Nevis, observed throughout the month of May. The month-long observance, which was organized by the Agriculture Department and was into its 7th year, sought to highlight the role of this all-important sector to the island. The Honorable Alexis Jeffers spoke on the theme at the time in an address to launch the month of activities.
Through their efforts, we have seen the introduction of better irrigation techniques, shade house production, intensive livestock farming, development of organic products to assist in production, to ensure safer food. It must be noted that in addition to having safe food, we have to ensure that the food we produce have the nutritional requirements for our consumers.
Minister Jeffers, also speaking on the Mark program, spoke about the new initiatives they embarked upon, which was planting some 500 fruit trees throughout the island.
We are hoping that at least 500 households here on the island of Nevis, or owners of properties here on the island of Nevis, will get at least a fruit tree to plant in their backyard. We are going to be concentrating as well on those affordable income housing development as well, because those areas in most cases are pretty sparse in terms of trees, and we know the importance of trees.
On St. Kitts, some 500 plants were handed over to communities as a part of the 2019 Best Village competition on Wednesday, 25th this September at the Eco Park at 9:30 a.m. The VON Newsline spoke to the chair of the competition, Novelette Morton, who had this to say.
The aim of the competition is to first instill national pride in our citizens. We want to make persons aware of the importance of preserving our environment. We also want persons to develop pride in country, pride in place, and so we encourage our citizens to participate in beautifying their surroundings. We think this is an important part of developing our tourism product, and we think that our citizens must be aware that each and every individual plays an important part in keeping our country and our environment clean and attractive. We are one federation, and whatever is done to develop one island is done to develop both. And so certainly if St. Kitts is developing its tourism product, it's an added boost to the overall tourism product of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Nivisha Mr. Lemuel Pemberton was presented with the Points of Life certificate signed by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on Thursday, 27th June 2019. The award was presented to him by His Excellency the Governor-General Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, GCMG, CVO, QCJP, in recognition of his work in the conservation of sea turtles in Nevis as an example of the promotion of conservation and nature. Between July and October of 2019, there were a number of poaching of turtles on Nevis. Here is Deputy Director of Marine Resources on Nevis, Mr. Lemuel Pemberton, speaking to the VON Newsline on the most recent incident, which occurred on Thursday, 10th October 2019.
We had an incident, one of a chain of incidents that have happened over the past month and a half, and this is another instance of us nearly losing one nesting turtle. Volunteers walking the beach in the Case Bay area near to the Mariners Pub found the turtle trussed up, all tied up and ready to be taken away. So this was an attempted poaching incident. The volunteers saw a vehicle parked not so far away in the area of the Mariners Pub, former Mariners Pub, or Island Life, Island Living. At that point in time, not aware that the turtle was being poached, so did not get near enough to the vehicle to take the number.
Premier of Nevis has condemned the incidents that have occurred on the island.
I
Latest
received
FAO
some
estimates.
indication and have now received a formal note from the Department of Marine Resources that a nesting sea turtle was poached from Cades Bay Beach on the 8th of August 2019. Unfortunately, it appears that there was a second such incident at Cades Bay between 31st August and 2nd September. And I'm appealing to our people, our fishermen, that you're not doing yourself or the island any value by engaging in this type of illegal activity.
The Honorable Mark Brantley. Still in agriculture, St. Kitts and Nevis joined the rest of the world on October 16th in the observance of World Food Day. The day was held under the theme, Our Actions or Future, Healthy Diets for a Zero World Hunger. Minister of Agriculture on St. Kitts, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, in an address to mark the day, noted that it presented an opportunity to draw attention to those that are hungry. Minister of Agriculture on Nevis, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, in an address to mark the observance, said this.
Latest FAO estimates show that nearly 900 million people worldwide live in a state of daily hunger. Additionally, millions of people, including approximately 6 million children under the age of 5, die each year as a result of hunger. They, unlike most of us in Nevis, are unable to access food, clean water, and low-cost medical care. Here in Nevis, World Food Day is also observed to give citizens and residents a chance to join with people the world over in strengthening the struggle for freedom from hunger. And it also offers us an occasion to highlight the crucial importance of food and agriculture to our people.
Healthy lifestyle on Nevis, the One Love Rastafari movement located in Fountain Village held a Thanksgiving ceremony on Tuesday, 29th October 2019 at the St. James Primary School for the development of a garden at the school.
This is really why this project is different to any other project, in that the success of this garden over the past years. One, it's an organic garden, strictly organic. We use no artificial chemicals. The children own the garden, and so they are responsible for the planting and the maintenance of the plants, from planting the seed, nurturing it, harvesting it, taking it to the kitchen, and then having it on their plate. And they even get the excess to take home. And so a child with that level of experience really understands food production and where their food comes from. I think it is something that really falls in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, with all of our objectives in terms of healthy eating, eating what you grow. And here's a great example, because a child who would have gone through that experience of planting a seed and then being able to eat the produce is a lifetime lesson being taught right there.
That was Mr. Delroy Ras Eroy Penny, co-chair of the organization. Meanwhile, on St. Kitts, the department was concerned over the wastage of food in the Federation. Director of the department, Mr. Melvin James, spoke to the VOA Newsline about the issue.
In the field itself, before you harvest, and we have focused on that a lot over the years. Pests and diseases, they sometimes damage the product before you and sometimes make it unmarketable. The focus is so much more now on not just pests and diseases, but larger animals, what we call feral animals. I think in the Nevis context, they are donkeys, but here in St. Kitts, we have wild pigs, and both countries would have monkeys, and monkeys can do considerable damage. And the third thing that I want to focus on is for us to look at things at the table, things at home. And very affluent societies are very guilty of wasting a lot of food. We too waste a lot of food, in that a lot of times half or less of what is served to a family may end up not being utilized.
Despite this, the department continues to push for individuals to continue engaging in healthy eating and supporting local farmers.
I really want to encourage us to eat local, because healthiness, a lot of times, local translates into more healthy. Because one, you have higher pesticide residues from imported food, you have greater manipulation of the imported food, and when you look down the road, there are a lot of health complications.
Mr. Melvin James. In cultural activities and festivities and Culturama news, Love, Passion, Pride, Culturama 45 was the winning slogan and theme for the 2019 Culturama activities. The slogan was penned by Vernine Williams of Brown Hill, Nevis in February, and she received a cash prize of $500 and 2 sets of complimentary tickets to all Culturama 45 activities, a complimentary cultural street parade troop package of her choice, and a plaque. The festival ran from July 25th to August 6, 2019.
I have been reliably informed that this morning on the airwaves of One Radio, Badman Polo would have released his calypso song and his soca song. That would qualify him for a cash reward of $500 should he meet the other requirements, which would include that the song would have to be submitted to the Culturama Secretariat in MP3 format or on CD within 48 hours of that release.
Those comments by the chair of the Culturama Committee, Mr. Antonio Abonati Liburd, following the release of 3 songs, Cheaters, Donkeys Bray, and Taxpayers Pay by Junior Badman Polo Newton on Monday, 1st April 2019 on Vaughan Radio. He further added these congratulatory remarks for Mr. Newton.
I would like from this rostrum to congratulate Polo for again winning that incentive or that reward that has been offered by the Nevis Culturama Committee. I think that this may be the 3rd or 2nd consecutive year that Polo is taking that award as being the first Calypsonian and also the first Soca Monarch artist to release for Culturama 45.
Meanwhile, at his March 26 press conference, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, addressed concerns over the Wet Fete activity for Culturama 45 amidst a drought situation here on the island.
I think that is something we'll have to deal with closer to the time, because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the water situation. It may well be that this period that we're going through, that it turns around, because clearly we may get substantial rainfall that comes. And so we will be closer to that time able to say whether or not that event will move ahead as planned, or whether there will be some adjustments in the context of saving water. So I don't want to prejudge that at this point, because I think that event is still several months away from today.
There were also increases in the prize monies for this year's festival. Here is Minister with Responsibility for Culture on Nevis, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, speaking on the April 11th edition of Government at Work.
For the Calypso Monarch, last year the winner would have received $12,000. For this year, the winner will receive $15,000. It's the same for the Miss Culture. The Miss Culture last year would have received $12,000 as a winning prize. This year, will be receiving $15,000. So we have gone up $3,000.
He also added,
for the Soca Monarch, we are moving from the prize money of $7,500 from last year, and we are going up to $10,000 this year. For the Miss Swimwear and the Mystical competition, we are moving from $6,000 prize money to $7,500 as the winning prize. For the Talented Youth and the Junior Calypso Monarch, we are moving you up from $2,000 as your winning prize up to $3,000. And for the Parade of Troops, the winner for the Parade of Troops, we are moving you up from $5,000 last year up to $7,000 this year.
The Honorable Eric Evelyn. In Music Festival news, the St. Kitts Music Festival Committee began ticket sales for the 23rd edition of the festival at local outlets in April of this year. The event ran from Wednesday 26th June to Saturday 29th June 2019. The event began with an open fete called Escape at Salt Plage, followed by 3 nights of concert from Thursday 27th to Saturday 29th June at the Kim Collins Athletic Stadium in Bird Rock, St. Kitts. Artists that performed during the festival included Smokey Robinson, Ella May, Vanessa Bling, and others. Meanwhile, 5 nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis were honored with the Star of Merit on National Heroes Day on September 16th.
Our esteemed Governor General has approved the following recipients of National Honors Awards. 5 have been honored with the Companion of the Star of Merit. These recipients are Dr. Calvin Hazel for spiritual development and advancement of our people. Bishop Joseph Henville for religion and community development. Mr. Erskine Edwards for public service and diplomacy. Mr. Augustine Merchant for agricultural development in service to the nation. Mr. Bruce Scarrett for music locally, regionally, and internationally.
St. Kitts and Nevis's Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. On Independence Day, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, in his Independence message, called on Kittitians and Nevisians to remain focused on the task of nation building and urged all to remain united so that we can face the many challenges that may come. In his Independence message, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Bradley, shared the same sentiments as Prime Minister, urging all to remain hopeful for the future, as that will give us as a people the necessary confidence to face tomorrow. That concludes a look at the biggest stories in agriculture and cultural activities and developments in 2019. Jarvis Brown will present the major developments in climate and health in 2019 next.
Welcome back. We will now take a look at the major developments in climate and health for 2019. The Ministry of Environment here in St. Kitts and Nevis received a coral reef early warning system and a hydrometeorological system by the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center CCCCC in January of this year. The hydrometeorological system was installed in Uttlers and one in Nevis, and the coral reef system installed in Sandy Point, St. Kitts. On April 2nd of this year, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis announced that all damage caused by hurricanes in 2017 will be dealt with before June 2019. He assured individuals at that time whose roofs were damaged by Hurricane Maria that they will receive assistance via the government's roof repair program. As the season drew closer, Director of the Nevis Disaster Management Department, Mr. Brian Dyer, encouraged the public to make the necessary preparations. In getting the community ready, the department dubbed the month of June Hurricane Awareness Month.
We have done a lot with regards to sensitization. We have conducted surveys in the communities. We have gone around to the churches and made presentations. We have involved the schools and make presentations. We continue to work with the non-government organizations and businesses to ensure that they are aware of the hurricane hazard. We continue to do much, but we still understand that it's an everyday exercise, and we not only have to concentrate on hurricane only, but the other 11 hazards that could impact the Federation at any time.
St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris also urged individuals to be prepared.
The 2019 Atlantic hurricane season starts on the 1st June 2019. We urge all citizens and residents to avoid complacency and begin now to make their best efforts to mitigate the exposure to loss of life and damage to property. NEMA is already being engaged and has already begun work on disaster preparedness and risk reduction.
The public was also cautioned to be aware of information disseminated during the season and to follow information from reputable sources. Here is the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, Minister with Responsibility for Disaster Management here on Nevis, speaking on the May 30th edition of Government at Work.
I want persons to stay tuned and keep in mind what I have to say here is very important, because of course with so many different source of information these days, everyone has become a reporter now, and everyone seems to think that they can report anything and everything when they so desire and if they so desire. I want persons to be cognizant of the fact that you need to follow information from the most reputable sources.
Senior Meteorological Officer in St. Kitts, Mr. Elmer Burke, explained on Wednesday, 5th June, that the Federation was prepared for the season.
Whether it be the Met Office or the disaster agencies, we are prepared in terms of, yes, we have the capacity and we are continuously monitoring the conditions and we are in a state of readiness to respond if need be. However, we always want to encourage the general public because, yes, we would play a role in terms of institutionally. However, the public have to play a role in terms of individually, in terms of ensuring their state of readiness.
In September of this year, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, urged the division public to be attentive in light of the damage caused by Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas.
We can only look to the Bahamas, where it started with Hurricane Dorian, to see the damage and the devastation to life and property that storm can cause. And so I am again appealing to our people to be vigilant and please to pay attention to the warning and do not let our guards down and take it for granted. If we needed any reminder in 2017, we had Maria and Irma. And now, less than 2 years later, we have the devastation of Dorian with massive loss of life and property. So please, let us heed the warnings and do the best that we can to stay safe.
The Federation also provided financial assistance to the Bahamas after the island was severely hit by Hurricane Dorian.
We will also, as part of a decision of the OECS Authority, provide financial support of US $100,000 as the first tranche of support to assist the Commonwealth of Bahamas in their recovery efforts. Through the Director General of the OECS Commission in St. Lucia and through the efforts of the CARICOM Secretary General, various outreach had been made with the government of Bahamas in terms of what was urgently required. The government we are advised, has indicated a preference for cash.
Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. The St. Kitts Nevis Red Cross also in September launched a fund where individuals could make donations in order to provide vital services and bring some level of normalcy to the lives of approximately 300 households. Just days before the close of the 2019 Atlantic season, that's actually before the close of the 2019 Atlantic hurricane season, a tropical storm was formed on Tuesday, November 19th. The 2019 Atlantic hurricane season climaxed on November 30th, 2019, and here is Senior Meteorological Officer Mr. Elmer Burke expressing that the Federation was spared.
Initially, the forecast would have called for a near average season, and then it was slightly upped in terms of the Atlantic, up to just slightly above average. However, what is forecast doesn't always what is materialized, and we would have materialized more storms than anticipated. So for us here in the Atlantic, we would have seen 18 storms, 6 of which would have developed into hurricanes, and 3 of those hurricanes developed into major hurricanes. We had an above average season. For us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we were impacted just slightly from 2 systems mainly, and most of the impact was concentrated on the coastline due to wave action. So we were spared for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Still in climate and weather, Nevis was also hit in June by a 3.7 magnitude earthquake. It occurred southeast of Nevis, 16.99 degrees north and 62.37 degrees west. And that concludes our major developments in climate and weather. Now on to health. In January, it was revealed that the then Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health here on Nevis, Mrs. Nicole Slack-Liburd, ended her tenure with the Nevis administration to take up a position at the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO. She was congratulated for her new appointment by Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Bantley, at his monthly press conference on January 31st.
She has been a bright light in the health and the delivery of health services here on the island. She took over at my urging the Ministry of Health as the Permanent Secretary in 2013, and she has been leading, I think, with great distinction that ministry. She has now, I'm told, transitioned or is in the process of transitioning to higher heights. So she's taken a position regionally with PAHO. And I want to commend you, Mrs. Slack-Liburd, for your efforts. I want to wish you all the very best.
The NIA also in February hired a number of overseas nurses following a chronic shortage of nurses here at Nevis. Here is Minister of Health, the Honorable Mark Bantley, speaking on the development in February.
I'm told that we have had a chronic shortage of nurses, as we know. We're making some progress. 3 new nurses have started at the Alexandra Hospital so far this year, including 1 male. All are from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Another 3 are expected to start by April, and these are from St. Vincent and the Philippines, including another 2 males. Now, why am I emphasizing this? Because nursing has been a profession, traditionally here in Nevis, it has been dominated by females. And I'm saying that males as well can enter the nursing profession.
Still in health, also the first radiation procedure for prostate cancer was done in the Federation in February of this year. The procedure was conducted by urologist Dr. Dwayne Thwaites at the Alexandra Hospital here on Nevis.
It's a remarkable day for healthcare in the Federation, St. Kitts and Nevis. We've just performed 3 brachytherapy, which is short-term radioactive seed implants for prostate cancer.
Still in health, nurses were also given recognition in May with the hosting of Nurses Week 2019 from May 6 to May 12 under the theme Nurses a Voice to Lead Health for All. Junior Minister of Health here on Nevis, the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams, at the time stressed the importance of nurses.
They are the forefront of healthcare and are essential partners on the multidisciplinary healthcare team. Nursing roles have expanded over the years. Not only do they play an active role in disease prevention, treatment, and care, they have also influenced health-related policies and empowered commitments to take action towards improving their health and well-being. Nurses are ambassadors of wellness who are guided by the principle, every contact counts. They have an integrated and sustained connection to the people they serve and are poised to disseminate important health information to meet the needs of patients, their families, and their communities.
Meanwhile, on Tuesday, 17th September, Minister of State with responsibility for health here in St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, during a sitting of the National Assembly, quelled rumors of questionable medical practices by physicians on the U.S. naval ship Comfort. Captain of the ship, Lieutenant Commander, family physician Jeremy Kenisian, also debunked rumors of suspicious medical practices.
It's too bad that I've heard some of those things as well, and I think a couple things I would say is, one, I think we've had some great experience and great success in some of the islands we've already been to here in the Eastern Caribbean. We've seen nearly 10,000 patients in the last 2 stops we've had. So I think some of that word has been out there, but I think we've seen some wonderful patients and very interested patients who are coming to see us and trying and get some help, and we've been trying to provide whatever we can for them. I would say it's been a large success for us, not to mention across the entire mission. We've seen almost 41,000 patients over the course of our 9 country stops thus far, and we're looking to continue seeing patients all the way through until the end.
Here on Nevis, the Health Promotion Unit, that's actually coordinator at the Health Promotion Unit, Mrs. Nadine Carteen Keynes, pledged the department's continued support towards the fight against cancer.
For the Health Promotion Unit, what we do is encourage persons to do the self-breast exam, to know their breast, to do those exams as often as possible, to be aware of any changes in the breast. For this month, what we do is to support and encourage and show the other organizations that are around that have established programs to promote those activities, because we are happy that other organizations other than health is pushing awareness and prevention of breast cancer. So we let them take the lead for this month mostly.
And finally, St. Kitts and Nevis received sad news of the passing of Pink Lily's founder, Mrs. Lee Paris Cambridge, on Sunday, 1st December, after some 20 years of battling cancer. That concludes a look at the biggest stories in climate and health in 2019. Tashan Tyson will present the major developments in politics and other general news after this short break.
Welcome back. We will now take a look at the major developments in politics and other general news for 2019. It has been an interesting political year here in St. Kitts and Nevis. In January of this year, it was revealed that former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and leader of the opposition, Dr. Venerable Denzil Douglas, is part of a list of notable people who have been barred from the United States of America by the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, of the United States Department of Homeland Security. On Tuesday, 15th January, former Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wingrove George, case for judicial review was dismissed by High Court Judge His Lordship Justice Eddie Wentos. That judgment meant that the interim injunction by which George's bail and conditions were suspended were reinstated. He was ordered to surrender his passport. George was arrested and charged on December 15, 2017 with 2 felony counts of misconduct in public office. He was granted $50,000, bail set at $25,000 on each count with 2 sureties. In February, Premier of Nevis, Honorable Mark Brantley, disclosed that the NIA signed an agreement with B&L Worldwide Limited for the development of the airport.
The agreement contemplates that the concessionaire shall design and construct, thereafter maintain and operate all phases of the project to international standards so as to attain a Category 1 rating by the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, under the International Aviation Safety Assessment Program, and shall from time to time provide the administration with all the plans, designs, consult with us, consult with NASPA, and also consult with you, the members of the public.
Since the signing of the agreement, no work by B&L has been done on the airport, despite the Premier indicated that work should commence this year. High Court Judge Justice Trevor Ward in February dismissed the case brought against Leader of the Opposition and former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Honorable Denzil Douglas. The case brought by the Team Unity government sought to have Dr. Douglas disqualified as a Member of Parliament due to the fact that he had a diplomatic passport from the Commonwealth of Dominica. Attorney at Law, Mr. Sylvester Anthony, represented Dr. Douglas.
Our position was always that Dr. Douglas had been issued a diplomatic passport as a personal courtesy by the Prime Minister of Dominica, and that we had taken the position, as have now been vindicated by the court, that the mere possession and travel on a diplomatic passport does not create a debt, as it were, of allegiance to the country who issued the apparent passport, the diplomatic passport, in this case, the Commonwealth of Dominica.
The government at the time, through Attorney General Vincent Byron, signaled its intention to appeal the matter.
We believe
St. Kitts and Nevis
be left to members of Parliament, whether on the opposition benches or, for that matter, on the government benches, to be able to obtain a passport from other countries in the region. One can well imagine what it would be like if we all were to get passports because we are friends with other political leaders in other islands in the OECS, and that we could have more than one passport traveling up and down. And we believe that that should not be as it was.
In April of this year, the Team Unity administration sought to review the Public Service Act of 2011, which is said to infringe on individuals' rights to freedom of expression and freedom of association. That came following the ruling of a High Court judge declared that those regulations were unconstitutional after they were challenged in court by an officer of the St. Kitts and Nevis Customs and Excise Department. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis in May of this year indicated that his government will take a comprehensive look at the country's minimum wage with the aim to address the wide-ranging issues and concerns of men and women in the working class. The minimum wage stands at $9 per hour of $360 per week. Meanwhile, the cannabis bill was introduced on Thursday, 9th May, during a sitting of the National Assembly, which sought to provide a legal framework for use in the Federation. Parts of the legislation for passage of the bill are to be amended and debated. The only pair was commissioned to the general public for use on Wednesday, 15th May 2019. Premier of Nevis at the time commented on the pier's opening. And finally, Ground broke for the construction of Pinnes Recreational Park on Sunday, 14th July. President of Taiwan Tsai Ing-wen addressed those gathered at the ceremony using an interpreter.
It is friendly to the environment, involves the local community, boasts a sustainable design, and pools resources from all sectors.
In other general news, the Cambodia Methodist Church in January celebrated its 190th anniversary. The church held a service which was carried live on VON radio under the theme Renewal of the Covenant Divine Worship on Sunday, 6th January. On Sunday, 28th April, the High Court in Charlestown was renamed the Theodore L. Hobson High Court building in honor of the long-standing lawyer. The decoration was made by Deputy Governor General of Nevis, Her Honor Mrs. Hyleta Liburd.
Your Excellency, Honorable Premier, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I declare this building the Theodore L. Hobson QC Court Building.
In May of this year, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Honorable Timothy Harris, announced that former Secretary General of St. Kitts and Nevis, Commission for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, Mr. Antonio Maynard, was appointed to a new post.
I am happy to advise that the Honorable Vance Aimee, Minister with responsibility for Social Security, has informed the Cabinet that Mr. Antonio Maynard, former Secretary General of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Commission for UNESCO, has been appointed Chief Executive Officer of the Social Security Board, effective June 2019.
In celebration of its 31st anniversary on June 18, 2019, a number of congratulatory messages poured in for the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, VON Radio. One such individual was Deputy Governor General of Nevis, Her Honor Mrs. Hyleta Liburd.
Congratulations, VON Radio, on your 31st anniversary. You have been making a powerful, positive impact not only in Nevis, but in the wider community, or world community. I am proud to be associated with VON Radio, and I wish you every blessing, and may God's continued power and wisdom be yours.
Ross.
Happy birthday.
We now present this 2019 report on crime and policing news by Mr. Marvin Ross.
The year 2019 did not start off on such a positive note for St. Kitts and Nevis, as it was marred by gun violence. The year also saw a number of murders, 11 to be exact, lesser than the previous years. On January 1st, 2019, here in Nevis, 22-year-old Keon Moore of Bath Plain and 28-year-old Jelani Liburd of Product Road were shot and injured in Stony Grove. Liburd died on January 22nd. He was the Federation's first murder victim. Following Liburd's killing, on February 10, 2019 on St. Kitts, 33-year-old Musa Ziggy Warner and 22-year-old Shaquem Stevens were killed in Old Road. Murder number 4 was that of 28-year-old Eric Junjun Thompson, who was murdered outside his home at Ponds Pasture Bastier, St. Kitts on Monday, 11th February. 2 days later, on February 13, 2019, on St. Kitts, via Emery, 35, also known as Money or Stiff Jacket of Ponds Pasture, was shot and killed by a lone gunman as he played dominoes in Sandy Point. On February 14, 2019, 2 murders occurred in St. Kitts. Joel Boyka Philip, 25, of St. Johnson Village, was shot and killed in his home by unknown gunmen, and Gavin Rogers was shot and killed in his home in Old Road by a lone gunman. On February 25, 2019, on St. Kitts, 30-year-old Siobhan Hendricks, also known as Chronic, was shot and killed. Murder number 9 was that of 20-year-old Donald Cornelius, who was shot and killed in his yard in Stony Grove, Nevis, on April 26, 2019. The stabbing death of 77-year-old Constance Thompson Gums in St. Kitts on Monday, 30th April, took the number of murders to 10 for 2019, the same number for the January to April period in 2018. Shaki Library was on June 27th charged for her murder. Murder number 11 and the final murder for St. Kitts and Nevis for 2019 was that of 85-year-old Elva York of Borough St. Kitts, who was found motionless in her home on June 23, 2019. Autopsy reports concluded that she was strangled to death. Michael Mickey Davis was on October 24th charged with her murder. In June of this year, Prime Minister and Minister of National Security here in St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, commended the reduction of crime here in the Federation after there were no homicides recorded in a month, noting that, and I quote, "This is the peace dividend we have been talking about, and we are now having it, and we are happy about it," end quote. Resident representative at the United Nations Development Program UNDP for Barbados and the OECS, Magdi Martinez Soliman, expressed in September his satisfaction with the drop in the crime in the Federation. At a town hall meeting on Monday 17th June 2019, held at the St. Paul's Anglican Church, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, reported that there was a reduction of crime here at Nevis.
Possession and smuggling, we have a reduction of 40% from last year to this year over that period. Robberies, we have a reduction of 67% from last year to this year. Break-ins, we have a reduction of 64% from last year to this year. Sex crimes, as rape, indecent assault, we have had since 2017 until now a reduction of 75%. We have had attempted murder from last year to now a reduction of 50%. And in relation to the most heinous crime, murder, manslaughter, we have moved from last year to this year over the same period of time, a reduction of 50%. And if we go back to 2017, we've actually had a reduction of some 67%.
This reduction was due to the peace initiative that was implemented here in the Federation, geared towards gang members channeling their energies towards the positive uplifting of the country. This initiative also saw a number of weapons and ammunitions turned over to the authorities by gang members across the Federation. Reports from the force in September indicated that 30 firearms and 73 rounds of ammunition were collected. In December of this year, Assistant Commissioner of Police with responsibility for operations Adolph Adams stated that crime statistics for 2019 are currently lower than the last 2 years. He explained that the High Command set a mandate to reduce major crimes by at least 20%, which the police force has been successful in attaining. As a result, St. Kitts and Nevis has been a much safer place to live and to do business, according to the ACP. Prior to this, Assistant Commissioner of Police Andrea Michel announced in November that 16 out of 23 crime matters had been resolved, while others are still being processed based on this year's summation to date. And in other deaths that occurred and investigated, on February 18, 2019, Leroy Henry of Upper Malone Avenue, St. Kitts, died in a domestic dispute. Henry was shot by police as he attempted to cut his throat. Of the USA was found motionless along a hiking trail on Mount Lyamigua. An autopsy report concluded that he died as a result of decompensated chronic and pulmonale multifocal bilateral bronchopneumonia and chronic obstruction pulmonary disease COPD, diseases manifested by signs of congestive heart failure and common lung disease.
That concludes politics, other general news, and crime and policing news for 2019. Up next, we will move on to the regional stories that were of major interest for 2019.
Welcome back, and these are the 2019 highlights in the news from across the region. First, in Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rossello resigned from his post as Puerto Rico's governor after mass protests sparked a succession battle. According to Mr. Rossello, he stepped down back in August because of public anger over the release of profane chat messages and embezzlement charges against two former administration officials. after which Puerto Rico's Justice Secretary Wanda Vazquez was sworn in as U.S. territory's new governor. In Anguilla, a Connecticut man was accused of killing a hotel worker on the island while on vacation with his family. The family vacation ended with an arrest and accusations of manslaughter for 44-year-old Scott Hapgood. He was arrested in Anguilla for the death of 27-year-old hotel employee Kenny Mitchell. Mitchell worked at a luxury Malohana resort where Hapgood was staying. Still in our regional news, LIAT, the Antigua-based sub-regional air carrier, faced a period of uncertainty after it emerged it urgently needed an immediate cash injection of at least $5 million to remain in operation. Reports of LIAT being grounded was denied by the airline's management. Still in our highlights, Bahamas was pummeled by a 185-mile-per-hour winds and had over 20 feet of rain dumped when Category 5 Hurricane Dorian struck the Abaco Islands and Grand Bahama on September 1st, Sunday. The death toll in the country from Dorian remains at 70. Thousands of residents from the hardest-hit areas in the Abacos were sent to the country's capital, Nassau, where authorities say they may have to use tents or containers to house the victims. Out of Dominica, at least 3 weeks before the elections on December 6, 2019, the United Workers' Party UWP candidate for the Celebia constituency, Annette Thomas Sanford, issued a recent statement about a $120,000 EC offer made to her by strategists of the Dominica Labour Party during a meeting she attended, which included Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. DominicaNewsOnline.com says she made the revelation during her launching ceremony and made it clear she was not for sale.
I confirm that I did have a meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Roosevelt Skerrit, in the presence of Lennox Lawrence and Remy Lawrence at the residence of Lennox Lawrence in Castle Comfort. The venue of the meeting was kept a secret prior to me being taken there. I was transported there in a white pickup. Then I was asked to leave all electronic devices behind. There were only 4 of us at the meeting. I did not notice any policemen or special security officers. Prior to my meeting with the strategists, I discussed the offer they made with several people, and they all advised me to get as much information which could be used to expose these corrupt practices.
That brings us to the end of our 2019 regional news highlights. When we come back, we will present to you the international highlights.
Welcome to our highlights in the international news for 2019, and here are some of our crowning moments. U.S. President Donald Trump became the 3rd U.S. president in history to be impeached. Democratic lawmakers approved 2 impeachment charges against the Republican president on Wednesday, December 18th. Mr. Trump is expected to face a trial in the Senate next month, but that chamber is controlled by members of his party and is unlikely to vote that he should be removed from office. The president has called the process an attempted coup and a scam. Mr. Trump is accused of soliciting a foreign country to help him politically by trying to force Ukraine to launch a corruption investigation into his political rival Joe Biden, a leading Democratic presidential contender. He is also accused of obstructing Congress by failing to cooperate with the House investigation. On July 24th, Theresa May tendered her resignation from the post of UK's Prime Minister to the Queen. Her resignation came after 3 attempts to push Brexit and make it a reality. Brexit is the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson and his Conservative Party won a decisive majority in the UK's general election on December 12th. US President Donald Trump congratulated Mr. Johnson on his great win. Britain's Conservative Party swept its biggest parliamentary majority since Margaret Thatcher's election victory in 1983, winning by almost 80 seats. The party won 364 seats. Prime Minister Boris Johnson spoke to the Queen at the Buckingham Palace to seek her permission to form a government. Former President of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, the Zimbabwean independence icon turned authoritarian leader, died aged 95 on September 6, 2019. Mr. Mugabe had been receiving treatment in a hospital in Singapore since April. He was ousted in a military coup in 2017 after 37 years in power. His successor, Emerson M. Mnangagwa, expressed his utmost sadness, calling Mr. Mugabe an icon of liberation. More in this BBC report.
In South Africa, the death of Robert Mugabe has been rather subdued, given that 2 years ago, when he was ousted in a military coup, people were out on the streets celebrating that he was out of power. But today, very, very small groups of people are talking about the demise of Robert Mugabe. And also there is a mixed reaction, particularly on social media and talk shows here. People are talking about Robert Mugabe as a dictator, but many others are remembering a liberator from white minority rule oppression.
In related news, Mr. Mugabe's body was buried in the National Heroes Acre Monument in Harare. His family says, following a row with the government over his final resting site. He was buried on September 28, 2019. Mariah Carey's classic festive song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, has finally topped the U.S. charts 25 years after it was first released. When the hit song made its debut in 1994, it was an EP and not a single, meaning it wasn't allowed to compete in Billboard's Hot 100. We did it, Carey tweeted with a string of emojis to convey happy tears. Still in international highlights. A U.S. man claimed to have found a videotape allegedly showing R. Kelly sexually abusing underage African-American girls. Gary Dennis told reporters that he handed the tape to authorities after discovering it at his house. R. Kelly was charged with 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 alleged victims, 3 of whom were minors. The R&B artist has denied appearing in the video and all other charges. If convicted, he faces 3 to 7 years in prison on each count. The flight recorders from the Ethiopian Airlines plane that crashed in March were recovered by investigators. The devices recovered from the crash site are the Boeing 737 MAX 8 cockpit voice recorder and the digital flight data recorder. The plane en route from Addis Ababa to the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, crashed 6 minutes after takeoff, killing all 157 people on board. The BBC's Robin Brandt reports.
This was the second fatal crash involving Boeing's latest model of its workhorse 737 in just 6 months. And Chinese authorities have taken swift action. 96 aircraft flown by domestic airlines have been grounded. Citing what it said were similarities in these 2 crashes, the Civil Aviation Administration of China said, in line with the management principle of zero tolerance for safety hazards and strict control of safety risks, it was ordering all 737-8 jets grounded indefinitely.
U.S. actor and comedian John Witherspoon, has best known for his role as rapper Ice Cube's father in the comedy trilogy Friday, died at the age of 77 on October 29, 2019. Born John Witherspoon, he started out as a stand-up comedian in the 1970s. The cause of death is not known. Witherspoon's performance as Pops in Friday was his most recognizable role. He also appeared in the sequels Next Friday and Friday After Next. Ice Cube said in a Twitter post he was devastated by the death. And finally, in our international highlights, the Islamic State group released a video on Thursday, December 26, claiming to show the killing of 11 Christians in Nigeria. IS said it was part of its recently declared campaign to avenge the October deaths of its leader and spokesman in Syria. And that brings us to the end of our 2019 international news highlights. Stay with us for sports.
Welcome back. Here are the highlights in sports for 2019. In cricket, England beat New Zealand to win the Men's World Cup for the first time after a barely believable final at Lord's was tied twice. The World Cup was held from May 30th to July 14th, 2019. The scores were as follows: New Zealand 241 for 8 in 50 overs, Nichols 55, Works 3 for 37, Plunkett 3 for 42. England 241 all out in 50 overs, Stokes 84, Butler 59, Neesham 3 for 43, Ferguson 3 for 50. England won after a super over. In more cricket, former West Indies captain Dwayne Bravo officially came out of international retirement, making himself available for selection in the West Indies T20 international side in the lead-up to the Men's T20 World Cup defence in Australia next year, according to ESPNcricinfo.com. Meanwhile, Ricky Skerritt, the former West Indies team manager, was appointed president of Cricket West Indies on Sunday, March 24th, replacing Dave Cameron. Now on to Mini Olympics. The 27th edition of the Gulf Insurance Inter-Primary Championship A-List Mini Olympics was held on April 3, 2019 at the Mondo Track here on Nevis. The schools that participated were the Charleston Primary, Joyce and Liebert Primary, St. Thomas's Primary, Ivor Waters Primary, St. James's Primary, Marquardt Preparatory, Elizabeth Pemberton Primary, the VUJN Primary, and for the first time, Nevis Academy. The event ended with the Charleston Primary School CPS dominating for the second consecutive year. Sports officer at CPS, Kazel Williams, said the children did deliver at the event.
The children went out for it. Last year was a kind of a mix-up, and apparently we won by less than 10 points last year. And the children promised that they will win by 30 odd points this year, and they went out and delivered.
Coach Williams also hopes for a more interesting event next year.
I would like to say congratulations to all of them. Every school went out and did their best, and we hope for even better competition next year.
And that's it for our Mini Olympics section. Now on to basketball. The 2019 NBA Finals concluded with the Toronto Raptors defeating the Western Conference champions Golden State Warriors 4-2 in the series, earning the franchise its first NBA championship as well as the first win by a team based outside the United States. Raptors beat the Warriors 114-110. Meanwhile, weeks after the Raptors celebrated their victory, Kawhi Leonard officially signed his deal with the LA Clippers, according to President of Basketball Operations Lawrence Frank. In more basketball, Russell Westbrook said his goodbyes to the Oklahoma City Thunder team in a heartfelt message on social media. And Golden State Warriors guard Stephen Curry was ruled out for at least 3 months after having surgery on a broken hand. The two-time NBA Most Valuable Player suffered the injury when he was driving to the basket in a match that featured the Warriors versus the Suns back in October. In athletics, Jamaican sprint star Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce was crowned the best female athlete at the inaugural Pan Am Sports Awards. The 32-year-old Fraser-Pryce was rewarded for her performance at the 2019 Pan American Games in Lima, Peru, at a ceremony in Fort Lauderdale, United States. Now on to tennis. The top 11 highest earning female sport athletes over the past year are all tennis players. Serena Williams, 37, a 23-time Grand Slam winner, tops the rich list after earning $29.2 million, including $25 million in endorsements, according to Forbes. Japan's Naomi Osaka, who beat Williams in the U.S. Open final, is second. U.S. World Cup winning striker Alex Morgan is the first non-tennis player at 12 after earning $5.8 million. And lastly, in sports, in football, FIFA is to take legal action by the end. Will take legal action to force Michel Platini to return 2 million Swiss francs he received during Sepp Blatter's reign at World Football's governing body. FIFA banned Platini, its then vice president, in 2015 over the payment he received, sparked years of bitter recriminations from the Frenchman and the fallout with his former ally, Mr. Blatter. And that brings us to the end of our highlights in our 2019 highlights for sports. The general weather forecast is next. Welcome back to weather tonight. Partly cloudy to cloudy with a 40% chance of showers. Tomorrow, the weather, it will be partly cloudy to cloudy with a 60% chance of showers. The winds east-southeast with speeds ranging between 11 and 22 kilometers per hour. The seas 0.3 to 1.5 meters, and the sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:40 a.m. That's how we conclude the VON Newsline's 2019 Year in Review. Do join us in the new year, where we will continue to bring to you developing stories of national, regional, international and sporting interests. From the management and staff of VON Radio, a pleasant evening is wished to one and all, and a happy new year when it comes.